You see, I am responsible for my well-being. I am responsible for my emotions, for how I'm reacting. So instead of looking to other people to change, I've got to see what I need to do to quiet myself.
You need to see this. It's something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
He knows. He's seen the light.
When Monty talks, it's painful.
Monty, you have been so instrumental in kind of pointing me in the right direction.
It was about looking at your character defects in spirituality.
It's the integration of clinical practices with the 12 steps.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people. He's got a lot of energy. And sometimes when you don't have so much energy, he picks you up and carries you.
Having the Monty Man there certainly helps.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Now here's that guy who's getting less popular minute by minute. Your host, the Multi-Man.
That's right. Welcome aboard to another fine episode of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. If you're watching on YouTube, happy Valentine's Day. There's the Monty and Marcia Gnomes. Happy Valentine's Day. We like to rip you off with marketing through Hallmark.
Wow. Now I know
humbug.
I'm in the Twilight Zone.
Well, welcome to the show. And I'm just not a big Valentine's Day guy. But because my wife appreciates it and I appreciate my wife, I had to share the little gnomies there.
Here's the thing. Why do they have to make a day to show your love to others?
Well, we can say that about any holiday, though.
Right?
Right?
True. Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You should
Let's just
show
wipe
care.
them all out. Let's wipe them all out.
Should show care and love every single day.
Yeah, but I think it's okay to celebrate stuff on a specific day, especially if it gives you a day off of work. I mean, isn't that why most people take work off? They don't even believe in the day that's being celebrated. Oh, that's a whole nother thing. Right?
And what would you be referring to?
I'm not going to go there today. Roger McDermott's on the phone. Hey, Roger.
Hey, how are y'all?
Hey, happy V-Day.
Happy V-Day. We started off by pissing off Hallmark. That's a good thing.
I know, right? All right.
Yeah, it's Vid Day. That's right.
It's Vid Day, and there's Dave,
it's
the Vid
Day,
and there's Derek if you're watching on YouTube. Yes, indeedy. So the topic for this week's show is expectations. We're going to be talking about that. That little ditty that you heard at the very beginning is Dr. Alan Berger, author of 12 Stupid Things That Mess Up Recovery, and more recently, his book, Essential Insights. If you're looking at YouTube, there it is. Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety. He's going to be on the show Monday, May 7th, talking about his new book as well as some other things. But to kind of prime the pump a little bit, I thought we'd do this show on expectations. But of course, I have my own expectations.
Gotta be here at 10 o'clock.
That's right.
Stop right there. It's time for the Monty Man's Weekly Whine.
Complain and whine, you're the Monty Man. And we know how you love to complain.
Yes.
There's always something to whine about. As each week you drive us insane. That's right, everybody. It's that time again for Monty Man's Weekly Whine.
What do I hear in the background? It's the ambulance.
Yes, it is pulled up to the studio, and this week's Weekly Whine. You guys know I have no problem throwing restaurants under the bus. Today is Buffalo Wild Wings in Corvallis. Yeah. So yesterday, after a wonderful church service over at Calvary Chapel in Corvallis, we decided to take my oldest boy and his wife to lunch at Buffalo Wild Wings. We walk in the door, and not only is there a mask mandate sign on the door, which is fine, I get it, but when we walk in, we are approached with, excuse me, but you are required to pay $1 for one of our masks, and unless of course you have your own. But I see that a couple of you don't have one, so you will be charged $1. And it's just automatic to put the mask on, and literally walk 5 feet to the table.
Wow.
The table was about 5 feet away.
I'll just cover my mouth with my hand.
Right. No, can't. Nope. You got to pay the $1.
I would have turned around and walked out.
Hold your breath.
Yeah, well,
I would have turned around and walked out.
I really wanted the buffalo mac and cheese. But anyway.
You could have a curbside delivery.
So anyway, I said, well, there's a way to fix that. It's very simple. They don't get their tip. You took my money I had to be forced to wear your mask, so you don't get a tip. Well, then my son pointed out, yeah, but that's not the waiter's fault. And he does have a good point there. He does have a good point there. So I thought, okay, well, then I will just throw them under the bus on the show. So there you go. So to top it all off, make matters worse, right? We ordered the pretzel knots. They're like a
pretzel knot.
They're a knot.
They're knots
made from pretzel dough. I said, how many pretzel knots are there for $11? He says there's 6 to 8. Okay, no, wait a minute. If it says 7 to 8, but I'm like 6 to 8. Which is it? Six or 8, right? Well, there's six to 8 of them. I'm not sure. When they came, it was 5. Wow, 5 pretzel knots.
Because you weren't going to give them a tip.
Right.
Well, they didn't know that, So the excuse, of course, that everybody around the table is talking about, well, they're probably pretzel knots sitting on a boat somewhere docked where they can't get more pretzel nuts. But it's the embargo fees and everything. Prices are going up like crazy. So for 2 burgers and mac and cheese and and a couple of boneless wings, $83.
Wow.
$83.
And they're all sitting in the back room laughing their what's off.
Plus the mask fee.
There's people that are taking advantage of this.
Oh my gosh.
Ridiculousness.
I could not believe it. $83.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
So we order this very, well, I think it's expensive.
Yeah.
Pet food.
Okay.
And so it's sometimes the Petco doesn't carry it in stock. And so we ended up going up there the other day, last week, to see what they had in stock.
Yeah.
To figure out what we can do. So we got some special gravy, whatever, a couple cans for one of our cats. And I'm like, I'll just go look online and order some stuff. So I happened to go on the Petco website to look at I usually have the food delivered on an auto ship.
Yeah.
Every 6 weeks.
Sure.
So I'm like, I wonder if I canceled that auto ship. Is that why we stopped getting it? Right. I'm like, duh, old timers disease.
Uh-huh.
So I go on there and I closed it. So I restarted it and they're like, when do you want your first bag? And they said the availability was today. So when I was at the store, I said, when are you going to get the food in stock? And they said, we have no clue. There's nothing, no dates on the calendar. It comes from Canada, blah, 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
But somehow I was able to get a bag that same day, by the end of the day, delivered by DoorDash.
Really?
From Petco.
Interesting.
Yeah. After they said
somebody's lying,
we don't have any, or somebody's got a stash somewhere, But I thought, what the
expectations, baby?
Maybe it was because I wasn't wearing a mask.
The whole inflation thing is a trip. It's real. So I ate at a restaurant in Albany yesterday after church as well, and it'd been about a year since I had been in there, and it's an Oriental buffet, right? Lunch buffet. and it was $19.98 for a plate for one guy. And so for myself, I was eating by myself, and it went up $5 from the last time I had been there. And so that's pretty significant. Yeah, wow. I was like, $20? Okay. Well, it might be a while before I eat back in this establishment.
Yeah, but I've heard that there's most of the stuff that we need, there's plenty of. There may be some specific like name brand or customized stuff that isn't available in every store, but they're saying that you can get everything that you need. You may have to go to a couple different stores.
Right.
Yeah, well, if you got the money, you can get anything, right? All right. Well, I
haven't had a problem getting anything.
There's the weekly wine from all of us to all of you. Lining up with the topic expectations. So there you go. Da. All right, don't go away. We'll be back right after this.
Hey, it's the Monty Man here, and I'd like to introduce you to what I truly believe is the gold standard in sober living: Absolute Ministries. Absolute Ministries was founded to provide faith-based positive housing to men and women that have completed a drug or alcohol inpatient rehab program and want to live for Jesus Christ. While at Absolute, you will make a commitment to lead a substance-free life in an atmosphere that focuses on accountability, integrity, character, transparency, and responsibility. What can you expect from Absolute? Personalized curriculum to address specific individual areas of emotional and spiritual growth. Family atmosphere to foster many lasting friendships in Christ. Accountability through the genuine support of others who can relate, encourage, and challenge you. Life skills training. Positive group activities and outings. And connecting with a local church. We encourage men and women to find their niche, their passion, by getting involved and volunteering locally. For more information about the sober living of Absolute Ministries, visit absoluteministries.org, the gold standard in transitional housing and mentoring.
Hey, check it out. You can now access all of our shows from a variety of podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, Podomatic, and Player FM. Simply search for Take 12 Recovery Radio, and you'll be tuned into the best in recovery broadcast journalism. Also available at take12radio.com.
Hey there, it's the Monty Man, and did you know that Take 12 Recovery Radio offers some of the best in recovery workshops for free to you, our listeners? Workshops like Walking Through the Big Book and Walking Through the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions with Chris S. Step by Step Toward Emotional Sobriety with Dr. Alan Berger and guests. Understanding Intervention with Tony Messbarger. The Rob Kelly Hour with the world's addiction doctor, Dr. Rob Kelly. Radio Rehab's The Road to Redemption with multi-Dove Award winner Brian Duncan. And, of course, the Monty Man's Recovery Meditorials. Well, these workshops are all available by visiting our website at take12radio.com and clicking on the Recovery Workshops banner. Listen and download all of these workshops, burn copies, share them with your friends, family, and recovery community. And don't forget, you can subscribe to all of the Take 12 Recovery radio shows on all major podcasting platforms listed at take12radio.com on your internet dial.
Hey, this is Tommy Holmes, and this is the recovery talk and positive music of Take12Radio.com.
Welcome back to the show. The topic this week is expectations. Roger McDermott's on the phone from Southern California. David Fleming is here, as well as Derek, and we wish Denver well. He's not feeling well, so please keep him in your prayers. Anthony, how you doing there, buddy? He's not here today either. But we want to talk about expectations this week. It's a little bit of a getting you prepared for the Dr. Berger interview on the 7th of May. His statement at the beginning of the show, I am responsible for my well-being. I am responsible for my emotions, for how I'm reacting. So instead of looking to other people to change, I've got to see what I need to do to quiet myself. We talk a lot about expectations in recovery. In fact, Roger sent me today, and Roger, was this actually today's one for today?
Yes, it was. God sent it directly to me for us today.
It's great. It's entitled Expectations versus Demands. This is a quote from page 98 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. The only condition is that he trusts in God and clean house. And then it goes on to say, dealing with expectations is a frequent topic at meetings. Boy, isn't that the case. It isn't wrong to expect progress of myself, good things from life, or decent treatment from others. Where I get into trouble is when expectations become demands. I will fall short of what I wish to be, and situations will go in ways I do not like because people will let me down sometimes. The only question is, what am I going to do about it? Wallow in self-pity or anger, retaliate and make a bad situation worse? Or will I trust in God's power to bring blessings on the messes in which I find myself? Will I ask him what I should be learning? Do I keep on doing the right things I know how to do, no matter what? And do I take time to share my faith and blessings with others? Well, that's a mouthful, but man, what a powerful, powerful statement. Burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. The possibility of experiencing a state of recovery is possible. Of course, there's some things we need to learn how to do and some tools that we need to learn how to use. And if we're not going to do those things, if we're not willing to participate, it's been said that God will not render you white as snow without your cooperation. If we're not willing to do that, then how can we sit back and continue to whine and complain about Buffalo Wild Wings? I do the weekly whine tongue in cheek. I really do. But it is true. There are some people that will literally would have thrown a fit at the restaurant yesterday to the point where they would have created a scene. There are people like that.
Yeah.
That they don't just use something like that as a topic for discussion and have fun with and maybe, spread their opinion a little bit, but it affects their day to the point where it just ruins their whole week, because of expectations and resentment. So, Roger, that was a very timely read.
Yeah, I think expectations is something that we all deal with, especially when we're new in recovery, in terms of setting ourselves up for a fall. And I like the line that expectations are resentments in training. I think that's pretty valid as well,
Yeah, they definitely are. The one part in that reading, though, that I thought was interesting, it says, it isn't wrong to expect progress on myself, good things in life, or decent treatment from others. I would agree with that, but at the same time, I know in early recovery, my sponsor told me, Monty, you can't afford to have any expectations, not even reasonable ones. Because I was so dependent on people fulfilling my expectations in everything that I had to just shut that down completely before I would actually learn anything. Because I was the king of the yeah, but habit. You know what I mean? Yeah, but you don't understand this situation. Yeah, but you don't understand this guy. Yeah, but you don't understand the position I'm in. Yeah, but. I always had a reason why my expectations should be fulfilled. And my sponsor said, you just got to stop. You got to stop. And that way, we talked about Doug before, Doug James, right?
Right.
What a great guy this guy was. I mean, he really taught me how to apply and implement the steps out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in a way where I was actually able to take my ego and set it off to the side and learn how to do some of this stuff. But it wasn't easy, man. Expectations are well, they build resentments, right? We talked about what you just said, Roger. And according to, again, another quote in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anyone else. I would probably say more people than anyone else. From its stem, all forms of spiritual disease. And by the way, this is the only time disease is mentioned in the Big Book. People say, well, alcoholism is a disease, according to the Big Book. Not according to the Big Book. It says that resentment from it stems all form of spiritual disease. For we have not been only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, then we straighten out mentally and physically. That's interesting. The spiritual malady has to be overcome. And I was thinking about that verse in Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these other things, and his righteousness, and then all these other things will be added unto you. But then I was looking at it in context. It's referring to shelter, food, and clothing. It's not referring to everything working out your way.
Rats.
But if you have a resentment, and this is one of the solutions given on page 552 of the Big Book, if you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you'll be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you'll be free. Even when you don't really want it for them, your prayers are only words, and you don't mean it. Go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and you will find you have come to mean it and want it for them, and you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, now you feel compassion, understanding, and love. And this was this one person's personal experience. I think what I'm hearing here is when you get out of yourself, it brings freedom. Anytime you do that. And so, so expectations. What do you think, Dave?
I think I just go to retaliation.
You go to retaliation?
Revenge.
Speaking of tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
So I found that because I basically when I had my psychic change and started figuring out how to live life as on life's terms, I started doing those things, right?
Yeah.
Praying for other people, doing all those things, and found that everything kind of fell into place. And the issue, I don't even know if it was an issue for me, but the thing that I noticed the most is that the expectations of others came into play probably more than anything else. Good, both good and bad, right?
Right.
The first one is usually like, when's the other shoe going to drop, or how long is this going to last, and when are you going to start using again? Because you've been doing it for 20 plus years. What's going to be different now?
Yeah,
kind of thing coming from other people. Or after I got out of my first inpatient, I was asked, or the statement was made, so you're cured now?
Yeah. Right.
Like the expectation is that when you go to treatment, you get out, you've taken care of everything, everything's good. And
everything's hunky-dory. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that whole spiritual piece of it is huge, because that just goes back to, right, the forward of the first edition. Those of us who have recovered.
Yes.
Based on our daily spiritual condition.
Right.
So if my spiritual condition is in the disease, factor, I'm not going to be recovered.
Right. So you just don't experience recovered, and then you just go about your way, and you're that way for the rest of your life?
No, the spiritual, the daily spiritual condition, right, is the normal operating
that's a renewing thing you do every day, right?
Yeah.
Apostle Paul talks about that.
It becomes a way of life.
Yeah.
Right? Before it was the addiction or the behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's top of the list is your daily spiritual condition.
Right.
And it becomes such a habit where you don't even have to. You just do it. You don't have to think about it.
Derek, what do you think about expectations, man? Have they burned you before?
Oh, sure. Maybe you've heard it said that an expectation is like a premeditated resentment.
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. And
today.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think about the example that you've used, you know, as far as an expectation being like an unenforceable rule. Right. I mean, if I come home from work and my wife hasn't done the dishes and I respond inappropriately, well, that's not on her, that's on me. And I think at the heart of the issue, there's a communication breach, right, where we haven't communicated something clearly. And so that's on me. That wouldn't be on her. That's the example I think I've heard you share.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. I link the resentment, or rather that whole scenario, to an unenforceable rule, the expectation. But
yes.
Well, and if you want the dishes done, you should do them yourself.
That's
exactly.
Right. There it is.
I use paper plates.
If you have an issue with it, maybe you should take care of it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because what we're now talking about is demands.
Yeah.
Are unreasonable claims that we put on people, which the reading talks about. Where I get into trouble is when my expectations become demands.
Right.
Right.
That's a good line.
And demands is where I become dependent on how you respond to me in order for me to be okay.
Right.
You know. So I want to play this sound clip for you. This is from. This is from one of the many workshops that we did with Dr. Alan Berger on emotional sobriety. If you want to download those for fun and for free, visit us at take12radio.com. Click on the Recovery Workshops banner, and there you'll find step-by-step toward emotional sobriety with Dr. Alan Berger. So I'm going to play this clip now. Let me set this up for you. So we had a guest in the studio, a young man by the name of Mason. And Dr. Berger was going through the emotional recovery inventory form. It's something we'll discuss at a later date. But he was at a place where he was talking about demands and claims that we put on people as implementing our expectations. And so this is Mason explaining one of the situations he was in, and Dr. Berger trying to explain to him to see where his expectations and his demands weren't working. Check this out.
4 or 5 different times in the same week, I had a friend promise to come do something and would, invite me to places and things, and I was really desperate to get out of the house. So that was my upsetting event.
And he blew you off, right?
And blew me off. Yeah, he would,
So he promised to do something with you, and he didn't follow through.
And didn't follow through 4 or 5 different times, and then afterward was uncontactable that night.
All right.
So
what was your reaction?
Oh, I was really mad, but I also withdrew from everybody because I was afraid of what my actions or reactions, you know what I mean? Because when you're angered, you're afraid you might actually, have an anger spike and blow up or do something really, really terrible. So I kind of just withdrew, turtle shelled it a little bit.
Exactly. So you were just trying to restrain yourself and not do something that you were going to regret. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it? Were you having any fantasies about this as you were doing this? Were you saying any other things to yourself about him, or in terms of what this meant, in terms of how your friendship or how he felt towards you, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's you know what I mean. It hurts. It's painful. You treasure friends. You know what I mean. Like the ones that are supposed to be your friends, your family. The ones you can confide in or whatever. And so it was painful. You know what I mean. It hurt more than anything, and that's why I was so angered. I couldn't handle that emotion, I guess.
Did you think that he didn't give a rip about you?
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's what hurt. That's what's the pain. I mean, the part that's mad is that you're, it's selfish, but you wanted to go do these things, with him, but, it's probably true that maybe I just wanted to go get out of my house as well, so that might be the selfish part. But, yeah, of course, there's definitely a lot of hurt feelings, because it's like, how can a friend want to be that way towards me? You know what I mean?
So if you were really a friend, you wouldn't treat me like this. So you must not be my friend.
Exactly, especially 4 or 5 times.
So what do you think the unenforceable rule is that you have on it? Could you identify it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you call and you cancel, or you do some, at least make it up somehow. If you can't communicate, then do something. I mean, there's no possible way that there could be no way to communicate when you live in the same town. We both live in Albany here, and it's not very far away. There's phone, there's internet, there's Facebook. There's possible ways. So you cancel if you can, or at least make it up if you can't. Call
because that's the way you were raised, right?
Yeah,
you were raised that make a call for crying out loud. What's wrong with you? Yeah.
Okay, well, see if this makes sense. Is the unenforceable rule? So my unenforceable rule is that if you're my friend, that you cannot be flaky.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I mean that.
Right, that's the rule. So if you're my friend, it means that you cannot be flaky. You always have to do whatever you say you're going to do.
Yeah. So yeah.
Right? That there's this absolute quality to it. So if you say you're going to do something, you have to do that, and you have to, in order to make me feel that you're really my friend.
That'd be
so the unhealthy dependence is that my worth as a person depends on how you treat me in our friendship. If you don't do things according to what what you said you're going to do, then I feel like you really don't think much of me as a friend.
Okay, yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
You see where I'm going with?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, what it starts to become an issue of is because it becomes so personal, right?
Yeah.
That the rule you have is that you must do what you say. You cannot be flaky, and if you are flaky, then it's saying something about me. That somehow you're not honoring me, or you're not respecting me.
Basically, he's able to hurt my self-esteem by not following through. Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. So,
ouch! I didn't realize that one.
My self-esteem is hooked on what he's doing.
No, it's true, man. Crazy.
Yeah, so Mason's self-esteem is hooked on his friend not fulfilling his expectations of him.
Exactly.
It sounds stupid, though. It sounds stupid. It's real.
It's going to come. It's not like you pull these expectations out of thin air, Mason. But here's the other thing: is that when you keep expecting somebody to do something after they've told you 4 or 5 times they're going to do it and they haven't done it, then we go back to that old saying, "Fool me once."
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
shame on me.
The second.
What's going on for you? But you see why that happened.
Yeah, after the second time, it was starting to become expected. I didn't really want to say that, but I mean, it was kind of. You want to have faith in a person.
But you see, what happens is because you're there's that emotional dependency thing. You keep hoping he's going to make you whole. So that's why you keep throwing the bucket into that well, even though the first time you pulled up the bucket, all you had was sand. Because you really want that well to have that water so you can be okay.
Yeah, that's true. There's kind of that hope in that.
But that being okay is dependent on his behavior.
Yeah, and that's hard, man.
Well, it just puts you in a situation where you're always going to be then at the mercy of what other people are doing.
Wow. That is good stuff, man. But ouch. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if I had slammed my napkin down on the table yesterday at Buffalo Wild Wings and said, "That's it, we're never eating here again, let's go," right? That'd have been totally on me.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, there was a time in my life I would have done that. That would have angered me so much that we couldn't have made a joke about it and just went on about it, and kind of made light of it here on the show. But it would actually have controlled the rest of my day, and that's all I'd be thinking about. I'm going to write them a letter. I'm contacting the CEO. All that crazy stuff. Well, Roger, what'd you think about what we just heard?
That was really good, really, really deep and profound. Yeah, I mean, anytime that I set myself up with any kind of expectations for people's behavior, I just learned that it's on me. It's just I don't want to be in that position of being let down, if you will. So why set the stage for that when it frequently happens? And the other thing is I had no idea what's going on with the other person.
Right.
No idea. I mean, there could be serious illness. There could be and by the way, all of that doesn't matter. But it comes into that whole equation of what I'm expecting someone else to do based on either what they said or what I expected. It becomes, like you said, like you could have spent all day yesterday being upset about what transpired, but what's the point of that?
Right.
You're the one that loses. And so does your family and friends and everybody around you.
Yeah. Yeah, the waiter don't care.
No,
he's like, next.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave, comments?
And the people that are saying, like, give me $1 for the mask, like your son said, that wasn't their rule. They're just doing what they were told.
Yeah. True enough. Dave, what'd you think about Dr. Berger's discourse there with Mason?
Oh, it's a great one. I mean, I know I've experienced that myself, and I've kind of worked through those things, and I remember it brings to mind a couple of things where you go and help somebody, right? And the kind of the unspoken rule is that when you need help and you ask for it from them, that they they're obligated
they're
to
going to
help
step
you.
up. Yeah.
And it didn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
A couple of at least a few times for different people, and like you said, your self-esteem kind of gets a knockdown, and it's like, well, what's the deal? One time I actually had a conversation with somebody, and they said, you only call me when you need something. And I've heard that before, and that's because I stay blocked off. I don't ask for help. This was back in the day, and for the most part it was right, but it wasn't for the reasons that they were thinking. Right? It's like, I don't want to bother people. I want to take care of stuff myself.
Right.
Until I get into the position where I'm in a bind, or I get into recovery, and now I'm asking for help because I don't want to be that person anymore.
Yeah.
But the history shows that that's the only reason why I call. So
that's what it feels like to them anyway, right?
Yeah, and so I have to slowly change their mind, or keep doing doing the next right thing, and then eventually everything works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and if they still feel that way, then that's on them then.
Yeah, it reminds me. We used to, and I don't know how much wisdom was in this, probably not a whole lot, but Marcia and I, we used to be very open with our property. What I mean by that is not our stuff, but our home. And, I'd bring home strays, and I'm not talking about dogs and cats, right? Newcomers in the program, they didn't have a place to sleep that night, things like that, right? And we felt that we were being guided by God to help in many of those situations, and a few of them we were just kind of stepping out on our own and forgot to ask God what he thought, and it usually caused problems. Well, it always did to some degree, but when the problems really got to me was when I would engage in these kind of helps and not include my Creator in it. And then it would backfire, and then I'd get mad at God, right? Or mad at the person for acting totally what was natural for him to act. If you don't allow smoking in your house or on your property, but the person has untreated nicotine addiction, they're kind of supposed to smoke. How can you get mad at that, right? If they have no boundaries whatsoever in their life, and you want them in your house by 10 o'clock at night, otherwise you're locking the door because they're staying in your home,
and they don't show up at 10 o'clock at night, well, they're not even used to that yet. I mean, you know, and so I would get all butthurt about it, right? And then I would make claims like, see, every time we help somebody, we end up being the bad guy. Because what would end up happening is the people we're helping, they start getting mad at me.
Yeah.
We do the same thing when people come into our programs.
We do.
And you're expecting them to all of a sudden do all these things
right and do
it's like what the
if
heck?
you put your fist through a plate glass window because you have untreated anger issues, it's perfectly natural.
You can't. You have to smoke. If you smoke, you have to go 5 blocks away.
Turn left, then walk another mile, and then make sure you do your laundry.
Sitting here for 4 hours, you know, and usually you have a cigarette every hour. But we're gonna make you sit here for 4 hours, and if you leave, then we got to start the whole process all over again.
We expect people, just because they've decided to make a change, to have changed immediately after they decided to make it. We put that expectation on people all the time.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, right? And so what would end up happening is, okay, we're not helping anybody else. We go the other way. We're not going to help anybody else ever again. Nobody's going to live with us. You know, we got an extra bedroom, but nope, we've been burned so many times. You know, and that's Dr. Berger talks about how we approach people. We either attack them, or we approach them, or we retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those, all those are manipulative. You know, the attack is the anger and the bitterness and the resentment. The approach is, oh, now we're kind and gentle. And, you know, it's like if I want something from Marsha, I usually go, honey. right?
Gentle persuasion.
Which is manipulative.
Yeah. Can we talk?
Or we retreat completely and we do the passive aggressive thing. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm. How you doing today? Oh, just fine. Thank you. Good. Yeah, right. And none of those things are healthy. Right. But they're all earmarks of somebody who's putting expectations on other people. And what I've found is so interesting, at least in my case, if you meet my expectation, I'll raise the bar on you. It won't be good enough either.
Like the cashier that asks how your day is going.
Yeah, how's your day? Do you really want to know? Why did you ask me that question? Because I got a ton of stuff to talk about.
Right?
Yeah.
I did that one time.
Tell the bag boy to leave us alone. I'm going to be spending some time with you, lady.
I did that one time, just for the hell of it.
Did you really?
Yeah. And they just kind of, you know, like the deer in the headlights, kind of went, I really wasn't expecting an answer.
Yeah. So that one statement, pray for the person, even if you don't feel like it, even if you don't want to do it anyway, and then eventually it will turn into something good, right? Do you think that's true, Roger? Do you think that's true?
I do. I do. I think praying about everything and seeking God's will in everything.
Right.
You know, we take every thought captive and bring it to God. I think we got the best chance of acting out or responding or being appropriate in whatever our thought or our words or our actions are. Anytime I leave God out of the equation, you know, my character defects will pop up. They will. And one of them is expectations and resentments and all that sort of thing. And I've always got to check my motives. So if I say X, I'm expecting B or Y. You know, it's like I have to stop that process.
Yeah.
And just if every action and word and thought that I have is based in God's principles and in the 12 steps, then I have no business worrying about whatever the result is. It is what it is, and my job is to either learn a lesson about acceptance in that result or do the next indicated step. I have to stay out of, you know, the crystal ball stuff. Well, they didn't do this because I thought they should. Oh, Roger, good. Well, okay. Why don't you get off the throne? You know, I have to stay out of the way. My sponsor would say that to me all the time. I mean, all day long he'd say that to me. When I ever speak to him or after a meeting, stay out of the way. Stay out of the way. It's like it's burned into my psyche because I'm constantly in the way. I'm in the way of appropriate action. I'm in the way of God's will. I'm always in the way. So, you know, I have to learn to stay out of the way. See, Matthew 6:33, by the way, is one of my life scriptures. And, that's, you see first things first on the walls of AA meetings. That's where it came from.
That's where it came from. Yeah. Seek ye first. And we're talking about, praying for the other guy and doing something, actually doing something. Interesting, in the sermon yesterday at Calvary Chapel, Pastor Rob talked about, whenever Jesus did something for somebody, when he healed them, he always gave them an assignment. Sometimes he'd say, now, don't tell anybody. That was an assignment. Or go and tell people what I've done, right? Or go share this, or go do that. There was always an assignment. You
go
just
and
didn't
sin no more.
You didn't go and sin no more.
Yeah.
You didn't just receive the gift. Now it became your responsibility to do a next step. There was always a next step. And I think that really speaks to when we're dealing with expectations that haven't been met and we're trying to get over that. And one of the tools to do that is pray for the person or the situation. That's the next step. But we live our lives in such a way so often, and you don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict. Anybody can identify with this. To where when something disturbs us, we don't do anything other than stay disturbed. We don't go out and maybe if we disagree with a political thing, we don't get involved and go out and sign petitions or get involved with what's going on in the day to help promote our agenda at all. We whine and complain. Therefore, the weekly whine, right? But we do. We complain and we whine and we complain and we whine and we go on and on and on and on about it. But what have you done to help solve the problem? Where have you become part of the solution? What have you? Well, it doesn't matter anyway. No one's going to care what I think. We are so self-absorbed that we just sit with ourselves and stay absorbed much of the time. Right, Derek? Yeah. Do you ever feel like, well, what's the use anyway? I've been praying for the guy. He hasn't changed, right?
Yeah, well, my pastor used to always say that God's not going to do for me what he expects me to do, and he doesn't expect me to do for him what only he can do, right?
Yeah.
And so I've got a good friend. I love this guy with all of my heart, and he's enslaved in active addiction right now. And I reach out to him. He doesn't call. He doesn't respond to my texts. And it doesn't ruin my day. I love him. My friendship toward him hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. And I don't say this to be inconsiderate, but let's just be real. Flaky people I don't spend a whole lot of time with. If I'm going to have a happy, healthy relationship that's based around mutual respect and integrity, these things that we value, I get the whole expectation concept and conversation, but on the flip side, any healthy marriage is centered around expectations that are God-fearing, that work through communication in a way that promotes unity and love and camaraderie. And if those things aren't met to some healthy degree, you don't have a right, healthy relationship.
Right.
And so, again, this isn't an inconsiderate statement. Why walk with turkeys when you can soar with eagles, right?
Yeah.
Really, I love this guy. I haven't given up on him. In relation to prayer, at the end of the day, really, it's the only thing that I can count on because God is good. God is faithful, and he is moving and working behind the scenes, and he's doing for my brother what I can't do, and I've entrusted him into his hands. And so, I haven't cut him off. We just keep believing the best, praying the best, and making ourselves available. But I think in terms of right, healthy relationships, expectations are appropriate, and we can be mature about these things. And I just think that's the way it works.
I think it comes down to what do you do with the expectation if it isn't fulfilled? That's the key. And if it ruins your day, if it knocks you off your emotional center of gravity, right, then it's on you.
Amen. That's right.
It's on you.
Yeah.
So is it okay if Dave, if I tell you I'm going to meet you at 2:00 at Denny's for coffee, is it a reasonable expectation? Is it permissible to expect me to be there? And if I'm not going to be there, to at least give you a call and say I'm not showing up?
Well, yeah. I mean, but at the same time, I'm also going to think, because of just from what I've been through and how I think of things now, is that if I don't hear anything,
right,
then I'm going to reach out because, maybe something's happened. Maybe got in an accident.
You're not going to assume the worst, that I just don't give a rip.
Right.
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 I'm going to investigate first, because a lot of times there's something that happens. Someone gets in a car accident. Something happens to a family member. They have to leave, and they're focused on
all sorts of things.
Everybody doesn't do things the way that I do them.
There it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I can't expect anybody else to be the same way.
So those are the exceptions to the rule, right? The car accident, whatever the scenario.
Well,
sure.
I've talked about this many times, right? Remember the story about when I'm sitting in jail and my pastor's supposed to come bail me out?
Oh, yes.
And he doesn't show up.
Right.
So first thing that my brain goes to is, see, there's another person that's
let you down.
That's
walked away. Yeah.
Given a word and then let me down again, and it's BS. And then I heard, Spirit telling me, why don't you just chill out? Right. You're not the only one. Maybe he's helping somebody else.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I was willing. I kind of heard that or felt that in my spirit, and I said, okay, well, let's just chill out, and I did my prayer, if there is a God and you want to work in my life, give me a sign. And then I got a sign in the middle of this video that they showed. I won't go into that, but the next day he shows up and he says, he says, sorry I didn't make it yesterday, but we had there was an accident with a couple of parishioners, and I was at the hospital with them.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
So there I got a validation from Spirit,
yeah.
And the fact that gave me a great example of something happened that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I wasn't going anywhere.
So if you're going to have an expectation of Monty's going to show up at 2:00 for coffee, and I don't, then the rule of thumb would be, that you don't allow that to knock you off your beam.
Yeah, wait till 2:30.
Right.
Yeah, it might be a little late.
But he was going to pay for the coffee.
It's 2:01. I'm out the door. See you later.
And there's people that do that, man. If you're not there at 2:01, I'm out of here, and it's your fault. Yeah. And we end up just shooting ourselves in the foot, And
they usually do the same thing later on, so it works out.
It's said that
Karma.
the best predictor of future behavior is relevant past behavior, and it's like Dr. Berger has said. Then the rule is, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But there's ways, and we're going to be talking about this on the show, Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety, next month when Dr. Berger is here on May 7th. But there's ways to unhook from these unhealthy demands and unhealthy expectations that we put on people and situations. Because we can't just talk about the problem without some solution, right? One of the solutions here is pray, meditate, get alone with God, and he's got big shoulders. He can handle it. He is one that you can absolutely depend on. But just remember, more than likely, he's not going to do it your way. He's going to do it the way that's best for you, but it's not going to necessarily be your way. His ways are not our ways. Thank goodness, right? Can you imagine? We'd all be dead by now. Roger, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, hey, a point for you. You keep saying May 7th. You mean March 7th, don't you, for Dr.
Oh, did I say May 7th? I'm sorry. I did say March.
3 times.
Oh, that's because that's what I have it typed at. March 7th. Yes. Listeners, forgive me. It's not May. It's March. March 7th. There you go.
Imagine all those listeners that would have tuned in and not in May 7th, and it would have been two months late, and they'd have big expectations broken and resentments at you, Monty.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
There goes your integrity.
Well, maybe when we'll take the taping of that show and play it on May 7th as well.
cover the bases.
There you go.
Yeah, March 7th, folks. March 7th for Dr. Berger
the interview, Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety. By the way, you can get his book by going to Amazon or going to abphd.com is Dr. Berger's website as well. And once again, if you would like to experience some incredible shows on emotional sobriety, visit our website, take12radio.com, and click on the Recovery Workshops banner, and you'll find it there. Closing thoughts from you, Derek.
No new resentments, and I didn't realize David spent time in jail. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. Anyway.
Our jailbird stories. That'd make a nice show. Dave, closing thoughts.
Just keep doing the next right thing.
There you go. Brother Roger, thank you so much for joining us once again.
And my pleasure. I think, just real quickly, the answer to all of our issues is acceptance. That's what it says in the big book, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And the sooner we learn that, the sooner we'll stop responding. There's a difference between reacting and acting, right? And when we learn that, boy, it's a great thing.
Stop telling me what to do, Monty.
Yeah. Stop don't tell me what to do. All right. This song is really appropriate. This is about Lester and Betty. Everybody knows Lester and Betty, right?
No.
No? Well, you're going to learn a little bit about Lester and Betty. And expectations and assumptions, particularly assumptions, right? They can get us into trouble sometimes. But this is really, this is a love story in a very interesting kind of way. This is by Jerry Vandiver, and it is entitled The Heel of the Bread.
Thursday nights Betty made a roast. Lester would buy a warm loaf from the bakery after work at 5. Betty set the china plates. Lester said the nightly grace and carved the meat and bread with pride. And then he'd pass the heel along to her. Because she loved him, she choked it down without a word. Ain't it funny how we let our feelings go unsaid, and the time we lose when intentions are misread? And ain't it sad how we misjudge so many signs of love, like Lester and Betty and the heel of the bread. 20 years of Thursday nights, Betty somehow wore a smile and kept her protest quietly concealed. One night after a long hard day, she threw that hated heel away, and with angry words her resentment was revealed. Lester shook his head and said, if I had known, I gave it to you 'cause it's the part I love the most. Ain't it funny how we let our feelings go unsaid, and the time we lose when intentions are misread? And ain't it sad how we misjudge so many signs of love, like Lester and Betty and the heel of the bread? Like Lester and Betty and the heel of the bread.
Ray Vandiver, The Heel of the Bread. So, what misunderstanding between you and a loved one is keeping you from getting back to the place of health in your relationship? Is it unhealthy dependency? Is it an expectation not met? Has someone not lived up to your standards and therefore you are unable to be comfortable in your own skin? Whatever it may be, it would be our prayer that you would release that to a power greater than yourself so you can be restored to sanity. Sometimes turmoil in life is caused by simple misunderstandings, kind of like Lester and Betty and the heel of the bread. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, along with the rest of the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty. Meow.